right, so this is your guide on sleep and memory. So we're going to start with sleep and why it's important to get enough. So is sleep really overrated? Well, statistics say that it is not. According to a study by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 70% of teens are not getting the recommended hours of sleep they need per night, which is about 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep. Just want to make sure you caught that. 8.5 to 9 hours per night of sleep. Are you getting this amount of sleep per night? I doubt it. Well, what's the big deal anyway? Sleep is one of the most mysterious things we as humans do. It has been studied for thousands of years, and no one really knows why we need it. But we do know what happens when we don't get enough. Without sleep, a lot of things can happen. You can lose cognitive skills. Like on those days it's really hard to pay attention in class, for example. You can have other mental issues like dexterity, dropping stuff, tripping. You can become irritable, which I'm sure some of your friends or family comment on from time to time, along with logical reasoning issues, which could lead to poor choices, loss of your working memory. Yeah, what did I just say? And even death. Not getting enough sleep does result in death. Oh, did I mention? It also ages you. Just saying. All right, well, why does this all happen? We don't really know the why, but here's what we do know. There's a couple of theories about why we need sleep. The first is the inactivity theory. The idea was back in the day it would allow us to hide from our predators, so it helps us survive. 2010 Harvard survey suggested that we actually learn during sleep, not just help us remember things, but actually improves our memories and boosts performance. Maybe that's where osmosis came from. Restorative, that the body can rejuvenate. You always feel better after a really good night's sleep. But you can make up sleep, right? So if you're not getting enough, just make it up on the weekends. No. You can never make up all the sleep. You can make up some of it, but never all of it. Okay, well, what about too much sleep? Sleep begets sleep. Some research has found that long sleep durations, 9 hours or more, also associated with morbidity and mortality, which is kind of interesting. All right, well, the bottom line, in order for you to function at your best, you need to get enough sleep. You may think you can make it up, but that takes time. And people will like you more if you are well rested. And I will like you more because you are not falling asleep in my class. All right, so let's talk a little bit about memory. So if you can look it up, why do you have to remember it? Well, here's how memory helps us. First, survival. They didn't have computers way back when to look things up. They had to remember stuff. And I'm not a dooms theorist, but what if you didn't have the computer to look something up? It also makes us who we are. The fact that you can read this is due to memory. You don't have to spend time working through each letter and each sentence trying to put it together because you already know how to do this and you remember it. Okay, well, there's two types of memory. There's declarative, the things like phone numbers, you recall these specifically. And then there's the non-declarative, things like how you ride a bike. You don't remember the exact steps in doing it, but you remember how to do it without thinking much about it. You also have short-term, things you only remember for a short amount of time, although these can be moved into your long-term memory. And your long-term, things you remember for a long time. So how do we remember things? We encode information. Basically, we create a code to transfer information. Best chance of remembering something. So here's some tips. Create an environment like the one in which you need to recount the information. Example, study in the same room you will take the test. I know that's very difficult, but there are some things you can do to replicate. For example, in my room, there's often a scent of cinnamon. I do that on purpose. Well, for various reasons. But one of them is you can replicate that scent at home, and if you have the same scent when you're learning the information, it will actually help you transfer it. Mood counts too. So if you're in a good mood when you're studying versus if you're in a bad mood, if you're in the same mood when you take the test or you have to recall that information, it will actually help you. You also need to find meaning in what you're trying to remember. The more you can find meaning in something, the easier it is for you to be able to recall it. All right, so here's some more ideas. Repetition, but with a little bit of a difference. You have to have some time intervals in between. The studies haven't shown how much time is the best, but if you repeat things and then you take a break and then you come back to it, studies have shown that you will remember it better. Also, teaching the subject or concept to someone else typically helps you learn it better and remember it better. Kind of like the idea of repetition. Did I mention sleep? Earlier you learned that sleep causes issues with memory. If you haven't been getting enough sleep, encoding will be much more difficult. So back to the original question, why? Learning to memorize information helps you save time and energy. If you can learn it, then you don't need to constantly look things up. Making connections to other ideas will be much easier. If you understand, for example, if you understand that certain time periods have certain things that happen, you don't have to look those up to make the connections when you're reading about them. Now, go get some sleep. And thank you for listening to my presentation. Take the quizzes, see how you're doing, and write those reflections. It'll help you determine how you're doing on sleep.